Well, good morning everybody. How are we doing? Welcome to Al-Andalus, the land of the Vandals, which if you ask me, bloody hell we're gonna die.
Which Land of the Vandals, if you ask me, sounds more like a punk rock band name, man, from flipping Cadiz.
If we are honest, nowadays it looks more like a spaceship or something. It's crazy, isn't it? So picture yourself in the 700s, man. You have the Visigoths here, right? And they are fighting each other like there is no tomorrow. And since they were completely unable to solve matters by themselves, they decided to call on the Moors, the Umayyads, which Umayyads were essentially a Muslim tribe coming all over from Syria. At the time, they had conquered large parts of North Africa and they were right on the northern coast of Morocco. So here come the Moors, and let's face it, they kind of like the place, man. What's not to like, right? So they decide to stay and conquer. Now, here's the thing about the Moors, man. They didn't just conquer stuff, you know? They brought stuff with them. They brought paper, they brought fruit, they brought flipping architecture. And some quite useful things like math, philosophy, bloody hell, translations of ancient Greeks, which is the thing that I'm extremely proud of. I mean, look at this. That over there is the old minaret, believe it or not, which is preserved. I mean, they added the bell tower up there, but the rest is a minaret. As for this plaza here, it was probably the original plaza, you know? The one that the Muslim faithful would gather and wash before going in the mosque to pray.
They don't have access to that.
So the original concept for this building here was to be something similar as the Mezquita, you know? When the Reconquista happened, they actually built a church inside this mosque while keeping, you know, the structure, the architectural structure. I mean, it's crazy, right? Christian church, Muslim mosque.
Here in Sevilla, however,
there was an earthquake that literally destroyed the old mosque, and and they decided to rebuild the temple from the beginning, with the old minaret being one of the few things that remain from that mosque. Now let me show you this, because if I'm honest, this is the only reason why I entered this building. So in there are the bones of Columbus, or at least this is what the locals believe. You see, the bones of Columbus
made some trips of their own.
When he died, he was buried here. Then they transferred them to the Dominican Republic and Cuba. Then they returned here, in there. As for these chaps that carry the thing, they essentially represent the Christian kingdoms of the time. This is Leon. I recognize it from the lion. That is Navarra.
That one is Castilla with a castle, and Aragon.
This church, by the way, is the third biggest in the world, I think, after St. Peter and St. Paul. Look how big this column is. There's a crocodile up there. But just look at the exit door, man. Look at this beauty. This is the Royal Palace, the Alcazar. And it's yet another example of appropriation, man. So Alfonso the Wise, who managed to take Sevilla from the Moors, from the Almohads, he kept the original Almohad design of the palace, you know? He didn't destroy it, and he essentially added to it. So, to continue our discussion on the influence of the Moors, for me as a Greek, it's very important that they existed, you know?
They literally studied and introduced in the public discussion
People like Plato, Aristotle, and this is important, nobody else did that back in the European Middle Ages, you know?
Thomas Aquinas, for example, was fiercely opposed by the Catholic Church for essentially trying to do the same thing. And only after his death, they made him ascend.
In the Byzantium times, it was essentially Christianity trying to get rid of everything ancient Greek. And they did a lot of appropriation, by the way. I mean, if you think this here is appropriation, you should see what they did. I mean, we have the Holy Mountain in the north of Greece, you know, that area that is packed with monasteries and women are not allowed.
All those monasteries are essentially built on top of ancient Greek temples.
Check out this, how it's holding all that. So you have this on one hand, and on the other hand, you have the Moors here. People like Averroes, right? I mean, philosopher, doctor of the times, trying to balance bloody Aristotle with religion. Can you imagine something like that happening today? I think X would explode. I don't know what it's called nowadays.
Twitter or something.
Imagine yourself sitting here and chatting about Aristotle, man. Right? So up there is where the Borbones are living when they come to Sevilla. This is a masterpiece, man. I mean, what a place. Flipping hell. And there's more. There was a moment in the 1600s that it wasn't as inclusive anymore. So they started kicking out the remaining Muslims. Now, the moment they left, all the knowledge about agriculture also left. And Spain found themselves in a very weird situation. They actually had an economic crisis because of that. Eventually, they picked it up, the know-how. But I tell you what, in the beginning it was difficult. And the Moors took advantage of everything they had learned from the ancient Greeks on medicine. This is a great honor, that's what I'm trying to say, right? I mean, we are talking about generations upon generations of people who had nothing to do with ancient Greece, you know, who actually took it extremely seriously, like centuries before the Renaissance, you know, or the Enlightenment. The one thing that I find fascinating, especially nowadays, that we are turning into hating each other for nothing. The Moorish rule had the habit of inclusion. Christian and a Muslim playing music, man. Muslims, Christians, and Jewish people were living in harmony, man, especially those first centuries. I don't know when this has happened before, you know? And it certainly did not continue after the Reconquista. Remember the Inquisition? Now, the Moors also brought something that wasn't really known in these here parts of the world. They brought the oud, which eventually became the lute, which eventually became the guitar, which eventually became some guy over there in Triana playing 8 chords and screaming about heartbreak, you know? No, I'm not suggesting that flamenco is Moorish, man. I am saying that it's multicultural, you know? Everybody stirred the pot here, like, I don't know, a historic paella or something. And just like that, we are in Anno Domini 1492. Ferdinand and Isabella get married and they finally manage to conquer Granada, man. The Nasrids, I think they were the last Islamic dynasty here in Andalusia. Built the Alhambra as the last stronghold, you know, the last fortress to resist the Christian kingdoms who were about to attack. Now, Alhambra was an architectural masterpiece. You know, the whole thing with the floral decorations, the calligraphy. However, what's interesting is that when we finally reached the last years before the fall, flipping Alhambra had become a hedonistic fun house, you know? It very much resembled Rome, I don't know, in Caligula's years or flipping Nero's. Everybody had sex with everybody back then in the Alhambra. And that was more or less the end of, how many were they? 700 years plus of Moorish brilliance in these here parts. So it was in the same year essentially that Columbus went on and discovered what he thought was India, and it was 39 years after the fall of Constantinople. I mean, you realize what kind of changes happened during that century. It was probably the equivalent of 2020 back then. I'm not entirely sure why this guy is dressed like that. I mean, the derby is tomorrow. Did they have a training or something? Banderazo. So do you remember the other day how we talked about this incredible action by Fiorentina, man, when they played Betis, you know, at Artemio Franchi, where I, by the way, did wonders. There is a similar and even more incredible story, actually, with Sevilla. However, this time it was Sevilla that did the thing, you know? So it was back in 2012, 2013, the years that all of you who are following some weird accounts on Instagram, back then they didn't exist. Back then you had only Ultras Tifo. And suddenly, one morning, we all woke up in terror. It was the Sevilla Ultras, it was Biris Norte that managed to ambush a minivan with 18 Polish fans. Can you believe? I mean, you know the kind, the gym type, who were actually playing. I mean, their team, Śląsk Wrocław, I think it's pronounced, they were playing here for a European game. They ambushed them, and they managed to steal all possible banner that they had with them. You cannot imagine the stir this thing caused in the world of ultras back then. Not necessarily ultras, hooligans, you know, that world. And also you cannot imagine the consequences. I mean, it was a period of, first of all, it was a period of a huge headhunt for Sevilla everywhere they played. I mean, I remember some incredible fights happening in Manchester between Sevilla fans and Polish fans. Sevilla was playing against City, and Polish fans, they gathered to find them, you know, to retaliate for the banners. Also, there were some away games that Sevilla had to play where they played without ultras, you know, they didn't go. I'm not sure if they didn't go because of this retaliation process that was happening, but they didn't go. So the Polish made, you know, banners. I mean, for fuck's sake, where are you, you c***? This was essentially the message, you know? Now Sevilla had the audacity to answer. I mean, that was crazy, man. So they gathered outside Sánchez-Pizjuán with all the Polish banners from Śląsk, and with another banner of their own saying, "We are here with your banners." Like, some crazy stories from back in the day. For those of you who don't know, of course, the stealing of the banner is a major thing in the ultras world. It very much resembles the stealing of the flag, you know, of an army from back in the medieval times. And we have talked before, I think it was in Torino, we have talked before about this rule, unofficial rule, code of honor, something like, let's name it, that says that if you lose your banner, you have to dissolve as an ultra group.
Now, in terms of political leaning,
Real Betis has a strong Spanish-leaning culture, and their supporters, their ultras, are considered to be right wing. In some cases, extreme right wing. The Sevilla ones, on the other hand, have a more like international kind of flair.
What is interesting is that Betis has some players that are extremely vocal, promoting ideas associated with the left wing, like Héctor Bellerin or Isco, players who are loved and admired by the Betis faithful despite their beliefs.
Sevilla was founded by British gentlemen, Scottish, to be more precise. You know, the ones with those exquisite mustaches. So you have Biris Norte on one side, with left-wing leaning politics, took their name from Biri Biri, the Gambian player, the first black player who played for Sevilla back in the 70s. And you have, on the other hand, the supporters Gol Sur and the United family from Betis. Now, the thing with Betis is that they actually had quite a lot of internal fights, man. I mean, there are many incidents of the two groups, United family and supporters Gol Sur, fighting each other on Betis games for internal reasons. The United family, by the way, is a much younger group, you know, young people, very radical, coming from the ranks of the SGS, the supporters Gol Sur. The other day that I was in the stadium, I didn't see banners from any of them, nor SGS nor United family. There was only one banner that said Gol Sur. Now, as for friendships, I'm not entirely sure about any of this. I think Sevilla have a friendship with Modena and AEK Stockholm.
The friendships of Sevilla include groups like the Riazor Blues from Depor, Bucaneros for Rayo, Colectivo Sur of Jerez. As for the international ones, it's Modena, and I think there's still the friendship with Comando Ultra of Marseille. As for Betis, I think they still have the friendship with Atletico de Madrid, and the reason I'm not entirely sure is a very big fight that happened close to the Metropolitano in Madrid between the United family of Betis together with Suburbios from Atletico against the Frente Atletico.
At one point, they also had a friendship with Boixos Nois from Barcelona, but I'm definitely not sure if this still goes on. Other friendships are, I think, Sporting Gijón and Mallorca. Let's honor a small pro-Palestine protest. It's very small. It's almost heartbreaking, you know, to see the effort. Look at this, man. We found it. Estadio Ramón Sánchez-Pizjuán. So this here will be the arena of this weekend's derby. I'm not gonna lie, man. I mean, the Sevilla derby has been also on the bucket list since I don't know when. So this is probably one of the greatest things about Sevilla. 7 Europa League Cups. Okay, gracias. One of the bloody Europa League Cups that they won was against Liverpool, man. I was so upset that night. Whoa. And these boots that we would never manage to make 10 steps with. What a shirt. And look at the belt, man. I mean, look at the trousers. So this is the reminder of the first game of Sevilla, Recreativo de Huelva. I think they were the first club here in the area. They essentially played with everybody from Greece, including Manchester City. That was the final of the Super Cup, I think. Look at them. Flipping hell, everybody is here. So far they get 10 out of 10. We can wonder by ourselves. Check this out. Money. Sevilla money. So if I'm not completely mistaken, our ticket is somewhere there. We'll see. So look at this, they started playing here at the Sánchez-Pizjuán, but it wasn't ready yet. It finished in 1975. Check out Georgie Best. It doesn't matter United or not, George Best is legendary. National team of Spain, I think. Look at this, they have pockets. This is what we are here for. All 7 of them. What prats, man. I'm still not over the fact that they won it against Liverpool, man. They are here to torture us. So the Spanish definitely do not believe in comfort. Now check out Sevilla when the team was founded, right? There wasn't much of it. Betis, River Guadalquivir. Look at our guy, man. He's one of the main reasons I'm here. And one of the main reasons I have a tendency towards supporting Sevilla. So before you say anything, I have checked if Betis has something similar. And this is what was on their website. Yeah, man, Sevilla 10 out of 10. Arrows pointing to the right direction. Everything you need.
Hello.
No one to annoy you. Hello.
Español?
Inglés.
Okay, this way.
Look at this. So this is where Matías is sitting, man, talking to the press. Explaining why things are not right, I guess. Am I looking at Matías right now or what?
No.
Who am I looking at?
And
The glass?
yes.
Why?
And
The hat?
yes.
I mean,
Hola. Español, inglés. This way, this way. Pasamos por aquí.
we are waiting
One
for...
moment.
Yes. So am I looking at Matías now or what?
Yes.
I want to say thank you to him for the league he won us with AEK.
One moment.
One moment, yes. Matías, thanks. This is where everything begins and ends. I tell you what, man, Sevilla probably has one of the most inspiring anthems out there. So we are getting wet by that thing. Let's test the comfort once again. No, it's good. They are sufficiently on edge. Good. This is the Gol Norte, I think, where the Betis will be sitting, the Ultras of Sevilla, and over there will be the Betis fans. Esto.
No se puede grabar, perdón.
And as per usual, we exit through the gift shop. By the way, Sevilla gets something like an 8, just because of that lady who told me that the photo with Matías was part of the tour. I understood that I had paid for it, and now they're asking 10 euros. Fuck that. We have our own photos of Matías. Just look at this thing, man. This thing is a mosaic, actually, and it's bloody gorgeous. Now let's go and check Gol Norte. An interesting thing is, and I've noticed this in most Spanish stadia, there is not much graffiti, you know? I mean, okay, in Bilbao there was graffiti of honor in athletic and the Basque country, but there is not much graffiti street art for the ultras, you know? And I came to realize that it's probably because of the policeman or the punishments by the league. I was reading the other day that Deportivo Alavés were punished for a graffiti of their ultra group, of the team outside of the stadium. And it came to the point that the ultras themselves were forced to censor their graffiti, you know? That was weird. That is weird. Del Nido. Del Nido is quite a personality, man, I tell you what. I think he's still in jail, isn't he? Del Nido. So Del Nido was quite successful as a president for Sevilla, but he ended up in jail, man, for corruption, you know? So I guess that says everything, doesn't it? So the neighborhood, it's an ordinary middle-class neighborhood. I understand that it wasn't always like that, but yeah, it is now. It definitely doesn't have this Vallecas vibe, you know? And the only reason I'm mentioning this is because these two, I mean Betis and Sevilla, are fighting each other on who represents the working class, you know? Look at all these clothes up there. What's wrong with this tree, man? Is this a part of some sort of aqueduct? What a massively charming city this Sevilla is, man. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow at the Derby. Bye-bye for now. Here we go then. Today is the Derby. I tell you what, man, the architecture of the thing is absolutely phenomenal. I don't have the slightest idea what these parades are, man. Look at this square, hidden from the world. Sevilla never ceases to amaze. €0. That's us in a couple of months. Right, so the center is the usual touristic hell. So let's go to the stadium. So I'm not gonna lie, this looks like a very serious event, man. I have been looking at the Sevilla Supporters Forum, and I have to say, man, nobody is happy with how the season is unfolding so far. And also nobody's happy with Almeyda. They actually accuse him of more or less the same things that we were accusing him. Meaning a shitload of injured players and not playing defense. What's interesting though is that when Matías left to come here essentially, he took with him one of our former players, Eric Lamela, who is now his assistant. Eric Lamessi, as some very well-known Tottenham Hotspur
influencers call him.
So, as we're making our way to the stadium, let's chat a little bit on the reasons why Sevilla is in such a precarious condition, man.
Because believe me, they kind of suck at the moment. As for Betis, there is no reason to talk about Betis. Betis is in a very stable condition. They seem to be moving slowly but surely, you know? Sevilla, on the other hand, not. So here's the thing. Sevilla used to operate for many years with the somewhat genius of Monchi, you know? Former player, scouting genius. And what they were doing was essentially finding cheap talent, evolving these players into superstars and then selling them for some pretty serious money. Think about people like Rakitic or Dani Alves, for example, Jesus Navas. Now, at some point, Monchi left to go to Roma, where he failed miserably, and Sevilla was all of a sudden in limbo. However, Monchi did return. And this was a curious moment, man, because when he returned, it was this period, if probably you remember, you know, when Neymar left from Barcelona to go to Paris, Messi left, Cristiano Ronaldo left, many important players left from the big teams. And for Sevilla, this seemed to be the opportune moment to, I don't know, to play big boys. Sevilla are big boys. 7 Europa Leagues, but they're not Barcelona or Real Madrid, you know? So it was during that period and the second return of Monchi to the club that Sevilla decided to start spending. They ended up spending a ridiculous amount of money to gamble on, you know, ready-made players instead of their usual tactic to invest on young and promising talent, which not only backfired, I mean, they were up there, but they didn't win anything massive, except the 7th Europa League, you know. They didn't win anything in Spain, you know. And then came the COVID, the disaster of COVID. I mean, with the exception of that Europa League against Roma, they haven't recovered from the COVID economical hit.
Check out that flag up there.
I remember back in the day, every once in a while I would get a super hincha in my hands, the Spanish equivalent to super tifo. I remember the Betis fans, you know, holding these flags representing Spanish pride, you know. While on the other hand, Sevilla would proudly wave the flags of Andalusia, but with the red star in them, you know, pointing to a more Andalusian autonomy, more left-wing tendency.
So look at this, man, all these fans here wait for the Betis fans to come with the corteo. Now, in case you are wondering, there were a couple of skirmishes yesterday
The Betis fans did come here, and there are some videos online with fights with the Sevillistas. Right, so we are next, or very close in any case, to Betis fans, man. Check it out, man, so we are here. Here's Betis. Look at us, man. We are 2 rows from the top.
Right, so halftime, Sevilla is a very weird team, man. How on earth did they manage to beat Barcelona? I don't know, what was it, 5-1, 4-1? Beerus had a banner for the Black Friday events.
Well, there is no Team Sevilla. Sevilla is horrible, man. I don't know if it's Almeyda's fault or if there's anyone that can help this team. It literally took one mistake and they capitulated. This is a sign of a team that's going wrong, you know? Even though we came in the worst possible moment for Sevilla. I'm very happy to have been here. What a stadium, man. This is gorgeous. So, let's finish the vlog with what else? With the story of Maradona in Sevilla. Maradona came like a superstar and left. Well, he left like a superstar too. I mean, the guy signs for Sevilla, literally skyrockets the merchandising with his name of Sevilla, and ends up abandoning the club mid-season to play a friendly with Argentina. Sevilla ended up hiring a detective to prove that Diego is not as professional, you know, in order for them to avoid paying him off, you know. Like they needed a detective for this. So yeah, man. That's it from Sevilla. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.